again, Steve, Maury, a handful of people who are mishugaim ladavar, that's how things always happen. And just a minor correction, this is not my book, as I'll talk about in a moment. This is the book of all the people who contributed essays to it. I was the lucky one who got to sort of hold it in something digital and online, which we'll talk about. But I did want to thank Jerry and Freddie, who will be here in a little while. So I have 4 minutes and 30 seconds left, because I promised, I know Michael's under a tight schedule, and we appreciate his flexibility in being here, that I really would keep to my very brief remarks. And really, this book is a symbol for everything that Acre does. Brings people together, diverse perspectives, different viewpoints, people who have a lot in common, but there's not really a structure to be able to give them the opportunity to share information, to learn, to solve problems, to identify issues, and to be honest. Not everything is broken, but some things are radically different. And that's why, for me, the book is really just an extension of what Acre has been able to bring to me, and I hope to you as well. And here's what I learned in the process of working on this anthology. Working on an anthology was a first for me. And I worked on it with a young woman named Ellie Rosher, who fortunately not only has an MFA in writing, but an MA in theology from Luther Theological Seminary, out in my neck of the woods where we had a white Hanukkah already, by the way. And her previous work was called Keeping the Faith in Seminary, about the experience of Protestant students in their seminary education, not faculty members and not lay people, but really students. So in working with her, in working with someone who was an other for me, I got to learn a lot about ourselves. And I'd like to, with her permission, share with you some of the things she said to me during this process of living with these essays for a year. She said, when I edited my prior volume involving students in Protestant seminaries, I didn't get quite this much pushback. And then at one point, I would say a few months into the process, she said, I'm a little confused because there are many prescriptive words in here, like should, and must, and require. And I don't understand that. I didn't experience that in my previous volume, and she did another one for public school educators, by the way, too. She said, this is kind of fascinating. She looked really perplexed recently when I shared with her a couple of phone calls that I had gotten from colleagues who said, I demand that you take out what so-and-so wrote because it's wrong. And, I patiently try to explain that I'm not in the business of editing somebody else's perceptions and experiences, but if you would like to respond, that's why we have an online component, and that's why it's called a conversation. Which is why during my process in working on the book, I decided I'm not going to write a chapter, because a chapter could come off as prescriptive. I'll have plenty of time to share opinions, as you will too. But in order to have a conversation, here is my takeaway, and with this I'd like to get to our first set of panelists. I've become a much greater advocate of the need to withhold judgment and to replace it with more curiosity. To substitute assumptions with many more questions right now. And really to understand that what we need is to have places where we can just kind of curate these conversations. We can have opinions and we can make judgments later, but can we be a little bit more open? That was sort of my takeaway in working with Ellie. But the other takeaway that was even more strongly reinforced is we have the ability to actually respond to the challenges before us. I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt before. I have no doubt after reading these essays that if we will continue to have a little bit of patience, a little bit more chesed toward one another. The passion that's expressed in here, the generosity of spirit, everybody is incredibly busy and took the time to actually write. Not because they're going to retire from the royalties, but because they care. So I think that there's reason to be optimistic, not just because a lot of us are, but this is further affirmation that we've got something pretty special in our community.